Goodbye, Miss America Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Some good old boys drinking whiskey, singing, this will be the day that I die. This will be the day.
David Harbour, in his role of Jim Hopper, did more to define my fatherhood than any other visual character. There's a peculiar familiarity to Chief Hopper's police vehicle. The inviting warmth of the color grade, the copper and gold of Midwestern fall, as a backdrop to a police chief's SUV, brings the subject into a more holistic view with its caretaker. The saddle browns and khaki tones of the police uniform, while not out of the ordinary, are specifically chosen in juxtaposition with Hawkham's lab, two disparate views of lawful righteousness for the main heroine of the story. The main heroine with two fathers. As we move along in the series and begin to explore the interior, our understanding of this familiar place morphs into a home for Jim Hopper, a place used in short bursts, mind you, for living, breathing, and existing, a place that could be shared with others outside the confines of the law. These videos are a collection of essays about why some picture vehicles are smart while others are dumb, hence the name Picture Cars. But in my catalog of entries so far, no other vehicle has been as thoroughly lived in as Chief Hopper's Chevrolet K5 Blazer.
Except maybe the Mirthmobile.
So let's discuss. Jim Hopper, born and raised in the small town of Hawkins, Indiana. A Steve Harrington character, skipping class to smoke under the bleachers. A military man, graduating high school in 1960 and quickly finding himself in the terrors of Vietnam. Upon meeting Diane and wrestling with the horrors of the Vietnam conflict, he took his new family as far as he could from that jungle to start fresh in New York City, a big city cop, as officers state upon their discovery of Ben Hammond's apparent suicide. He moved after the war. He moved after seeing so many of his friends die. He moved because he didn't want to see that same thing, even extremely tempered, in his hometown. He moved because in New York City, he only dealt with strangers then. Upon his return after painfully watching her daughter die, and after separating from his wife, he took upon himself the position chief of police. A chief amongst friends and neighbors in a place familiar, but now lonely. His family no longer there, the troublesome youth now the law enforcer, the family he created gone. His identity broken in a very real way. His return occurred in 1979. From the horrors of the Vietnamese jungle, even the crime of the concrete jungle, to a small, quiet Midwest town in a self-named crossroads of America. Having grown up in a similar town in Indiana with only one high school in the county, this show resonated so much with me. I saw myself in some of these characters. Trading Dungeons and Dragons for Yu-Gi-Oh cards, the four protagonists mirrored my youth. There were many differences too. The time period is incorrect, of course, but what importantly sets us apart in this context are the dressings of the police vehicles. Yes, Chief Hopper returned in 1979 and took it upon himself within his first year to commission new vehicles for the department. The force had begun to favor the Dodge Pursuit vehicle around the country, but setting himself apart, a target, if you will, for the town's citizens to recognize, he outfitted a Chevrolet Blazer. But instead of the black, blue, and white of the Dodge Pursuit vehicles, which were found on the streets of my own small town, Hopper's vehicle adopted a warmer color, a color which, metaphorically, further separates him from the force. Now, in many ways, the inside of a police vehicle should never feel homey for its passengers. Exceptions, of course, go to the employed officers, as they need to be comfortable in these vehicles. But of emotions felt within the back of a police vehicle, warm and homey should be far removed. However, there is a beautiful coziness inside the Blazer. We see this in scenes between Hopper and Eleven, and especially between Hopper and Mike. I mean, of course there are dynamics of clashing power going on, and this is a police vehicle, but Mike just continues being the stupid, in-love teenager that is so recognizable across the country, and I love it. This place, it's a rolling living room, and while the third living space phrase is recognized in the automotive design world, and subsequently has been criticized, this concept, of the vehicle being on the list of spaces where you do the most living is on full display with Jim Hopper. There's a scene in Season 2 right after leaving the now good guy-led Hawkins lab where Hopper grabs his blanket, pulls it over his shoulders, and he pours his heart out to Eleven, apologizing for not being there, and there's just no response. Later, there's the soft chastisement and acceptance after Eleven returns from Chicago. And then there's that lovely scene where he's jamming his lungs out to You Don't Mess Around with Jim. On the nose, heck yeah, but I love it. This is a close, homely presence for Hopper and Eleven and is so far removed from the slate grays of the Hawkins lab interior. Under Dr. Brenner's supervision, Eleven's world is a desaturated mess of sameness, save for some cans of soda and crayons. And here's the meat of this essay, the comparison between Hopper and Brenner. Here's another. Martin Brenner never drives any of the vehicles in his fleet. He's always in the passenger seat. You could argue there's a perfectly logical reason for this. But the role of the two fathers that Eleven has isn't fully explored, and I want to explore a side avenue just a little bit here. I've already mentioned Hopper's driving versus Brenner's reliance on drivers, but there's so much more that separates these two characters. Brenner's cold, calculating experiments, Hopper's naively belligerent confidence, Brenner's cleanliness, Hopper's mess, Brenner's grayscale uniformity, Hopper's forest brown variety. And here's where the fatherhood comes in. To go the complete other direction, the producers could have made the secondary father figure a more vibrantly colorful character, in a lot of different ways for the 80s, but instead they held to the law enforcement officer. To find an opposite, you need to define Dr. Brenner. Luckily, we have Dungeons & Dragons, allowing us to easily define the character of Martin Brenner as lawful evil. What I'm saying is the farthest opposite, which is more correct than saying complete opposite, of Dr. Brenner, who is a lawful evil, is a chaotic good. Instead, they maintain lawful rigidity with Hopper's lawful good. Someone who is maybe straying on his road but is quick to come back to lawful good territory. But here's the fun part about his character. He's pretty dramatically lawful neutral through the first half of Season 1, nonchalant and calm in his conversation with Joyce, until he discovers what the truth is. Then the lawful good comes out in full force, punching and gun pointing. It just takes me back to one of Holly Hunter's interviews for Batman v Superman, when discussing her character and what her motivations are.
She leads not by an emotionality, but by reason.
Because today is a day for truth.
Once that truth is understood, Hopper aligns himself with that truth for the side of good. This was also seen recently in Sonic the Hedgehog with Tom Wachowski, which I did another video for.
Like, comment, subscribe.
The set dressings for Hopper's character do this same character progression from neutral to good. Now sometimes it's chaotic neutral to chaotic good, such as the shift from rundown trailer home to better, but still maybe not the best decision Hop, cabin in the woods. His eating, a subjective neutral to a neutral good. He himself, you could argue, swings into the chaotic good territory when ransacking his trailer home looking for planted devices. But come on, leave it alone. He's a lawful good character. And it's this changeability that I love so much about the character of Hopper. That opposite to Brenner, who becomes more engrossed in the lawful evil for the sake of science bullcrap, Hopper can learn new facts and change his opinion. It's not something you see often in small-town Indiana law enforcement. My old facts were wrong. I'm sorry. I now understand the truth. My home county in Indiana is still getting called out. And sometimes it's for the right reasons. Sometimes it's not. But anytime there are opportunities when and I'm talking solely about myself at this point, when I can understand more inclusive facts and make new decisions, those are righteous opportunities, despite what they may mean for how I think or live. In a world where law enforcement is brought into question through multiple channels and is reinforced by many others, it's a beauty to see the chief of police in a small town taking the stance of lawful neutral and then the shift to lawful good once the truth has been provided. With the noble crusader awakened, where lies his battle-ready steed, and just how do we recognize him on the battlefield? Set in the fictional world of Hawkins, Indiana in 1983, the main hero car of the movie needs to be well within the limit of chronological believability. Shortened just a little bit to a long word, it needs to be anachronistic to the story. And so the Blazer in question must be a pre-1983 model. But there's some interesting work at play within the production studio in order for it to meet this time constraint. Many have already been able to identify the model year of the vehicle as 1980. The headlights are a dead giveaway. Where the trouble begins is the licensing of these vehicles to Netflix studios. An Atlanta supply house provided a 1987 and a 1983 model year Chevrolet K5 Blazer to the team. But clearly, the headlights read 1980. Yes, 1980 was the only year to have a pair of rectangular headlights up above and signal lights underneath. It didn't go for 2 pairs of rectangular headlights until 1981. But the grille attached to these models are more indicative of a 1985 to 1987 model year. While 1983 has more defined webbing, these grilles can be seen side by side, and the layman wouldn't know the difference. The Chevy square body is easy to modify and manipulate so that it fits the time period which you like most. You could replace a 1987 grille for a 1982 grille and no one would be wiser. But if the studio is working so hard to have the hero car be realistic to the time period, the easiest way to do this is by replacing the provided headlights for a set from 1980. Studios are limited to what they can get at the time, and while they were lucky enough to get a duo of working era K5 Blazers in Atlanta, the location of filming, they needed to manipulate the coverings to look the part. Of course, they could have just embraced the time differences. People like to bring up the anachronistic Volkswagen Cabriolet belonging to Barb, but this can be seen far more blatantly in the school buses styled from the 90s. But, and here's where things get even more silly, if we're to take a look at the footage and compare it to the die-cast toy, the headlights are again different, matching the 1981 and newer headlight design. But discrepancies in toys aren't a big issue. If they were, then they'd have to be meticulous in the hood hinges, and that's just expecting too much. With it being such a mix on the front end, it's no surprise that pinning down the model year has been a struggle. As far as the design of the vehicle goes, it's pretty consistent with other K5 Blazers of the era. Most recognizably, it shares a color and design scheme from Chief Brody's Blazer from Jaws. However, the colors are largely unique for both the vehicle and the area. While it keeps the uniformity between Hopper's wardrobe and the vehicle, it's the design of the text and badging that are shared with other police vehicles of the time. Shoot, we're so far in and we haven't even talked about the truck's capability. I'm just going to leave that with a plug to watch my video about Lone Wolf McQuade's Dodge Ram Charger. It covers a lot of the same material. What I do need to emphasize though is the vehicles need to traverse through the Hawkins Woods, even if it is to meet its untimely demise at the end of the trail. There was a diluted collection of vehicles that had this capability, but the two-door SUVs remain at the forefront. Whew. Was there anything that I missed? I'm sure there was. Leave it in the comments below. If we can trust the timeline of Jim Hopper's life, which I do, and he moved back to Hawkins in 1979, then it's fair to say that Chief Hopper chose this specific vehicle. While there are others that fit the needs of principal filming locations, this vehicle's brand helps separate the Chief from the rest of the unit. Hopper was very rational and very intelligent about the vehicle that would be labeled Chief. One that would be instantly recognizable, not hidden within the fleet. The vehicle of a leader. Is this the right vehicle for the character? Yes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.